Weapon against the forces that wish to make him sane, to get real, is metaphor. Metaphor is both weapon and shield for the person who would protect himself from too much reality or from the wrong kind of reality. It creates a buffer zone of imaginative negotiability, and it protects his right to dream, which, like all freedoms, is dangerous. But now, for some tangential jabbering, some risk-taking, some metaphor mining, here's a journal entry from January of this year that went up on the social media site Medium, and that was introduced to me by one of my students. And if you're interested in social media, Medium is kind of the hottest thing where you have bigger posts. It's kind of like a nice clean blog that you create. And this is what I put up. There are times during a conversation, big or small, when someone will look at me with a knitted brow, a perplexed expression, or some grimace of minor agony. It's taken me all of 43 years to realize that they are more than likely mirroring my contorted face as I physically muster up a memory or labor to put words together in some comprehensible fashion. In pedagogical terms, I'm a kinesthetic learner. When something can be put into physical form, my head and heart are at ease. To be honest, I prefer interpretive dance to conversation. But then how would I keep my drink from splashing onto my interlocutor? Part of the difficulty with conversation is also the fact that I'm always on the verge of an untruth, a fable, a twist into a purely fictional realm. Before backpacking through Europe in 1991, my high school buddy and myself from North Surrey were stoked about starting in Cairo, but the Gulf War put an end to our plans. We'd researched a lot though, and so we knew a lot about what we were going to see. Our trip actually started in Italy. And after a while telling the same kind of stories again and again, I started making up stories about Egypt, just for fun. And I would reveal the truth afterwards. But as a writer, it's hard to stick to the truth of the script. And it's a fun getaway from the truth. In 2003, I started writing a story every day online, a project that continued in various online permutations over the course of 4 years. All the little fictional tangents that cluttered my thoughts were given the free rein of a blank page. I wrote for half an hour to an hour in the morning. After publishing a small collection of some of my favorites, I managed to make it in the MFA program of creative writing at UBC, where I suddenly fell head over heels in love with poetry. And that higher wire act over absurdity. Since 2009, I've devoted myself to reading and writing contemporary canonical poetry. Through writing, I've learned immensely more than I deserve to know. I'm lucky to have the time and means to let the quirks in my nature play themselves out on the page, and it's you, my fictional, or now real audience, that I have to thank. You may not even be there or listening to every word. You may not even be reading this, but the thought of a readership is what has given me the traction to write 1,000 flash fictions online, and now, here on Medium, the freedom to explore poetry and prose on a daily basis. I've been writing every day for a week now, and I feel fulfilled in a way I haven't in a long time. In the rainy days of January, way back. And and it's a blessing to be able to bring that back and share that with you. In some sense, the first act of the imagination of a writer is to imagine an audience. The rest is as easy as keeping your eyes open, having a pen nearby, and reading as much as you can. One of my favorite books from the past couple of years is a mighty tome, but this is, if nothing else today, this is the book to read about metaphor and culture and psychology and biology and everything. It's brilliant. Ian McGill-Christ has a PhD in English literature from Harvard or Oxford, and also PhD in psychiatry. He is brilliant. He's amazing, and this is, it's a brilliant book. And I wanted to share with you what he has to say about metaphor, to give us a big picture. I won't do his British accent, unless it's mandated by the committee. The word metaphor implies something that carries you across an implied gap. Greek meta, across, pherin, carry. When I call language metaphorical, I'm not thinking only of Keats addressing the Grecian urn, "Thou still unravished bride of quietness, thou foster child of silence and slow time." Here, there are clearly many complex, interacting metaphors, and that this creates something new and different from a factual description of the vase is obvious. This is metaphorical language in a dramatic sense. But there are two other broader but related senses in which language is metaphorical. Speaking metaphorically, one might say language is open to carry us across to the experiential world at the top and at the bottom. And at the top, he talks about the context of words, and all these words kind of, the one word that I say activates all of these other words, and it creates this big picture of AGM, like meeting, the process of the different speakers. And that's, in a sense, a metaphor, according to Ian Gilchrist. And at the bottom end, he says, I'm talking about the fact that every word in and of itself eventually has to lead us out of the web of language to the lived world, ultimately to something that can only be pointed to, something that relates to our embodied existence. Even words such as virtual or immaterial take us back to their Latin derivation, sometimes by a very circuitous path, to the earthly realities of a man's strength, virtus, or the feel of a piece of wood, materia. Everything has to be expressed in terms of something else, and those something elses eventually come back to the body.